back then it was strange and unusual. But when Malcolm got on television and when he held speeches, you could hear a pin drop, you know. And Leo is also the sign of creativity, and it is the sign of children, you know. So the children that were born during Malcolm's ministry, if you would say, if I can say, right, during the time he executed his mission here, they're the ones who benefited or who adhered to it most. And you notice in the 90s all over the country, they were wearing X shirts, and it became a marketable and fashionable statement to wear Malcolm X shirts and things of this nature. At least I've seen that all over the East Coast. I don't know how popular it was in other parts of the country, you know. But I see how that works there. When you talk about the North Node, you must also discuss the South Node, okay? Because they come hand in hand. All right. Now let's just elaborate a little bit upon what the North Node is, since Reese would have brought it up, and it's good that he did. Because first and foremost, the North Node represents those things that you must come here to do, that you will do voluntarily, directly, or involuntarily or indirectly. The North Node represents those things that you will accomplish here willingly or unwillingly. Okay? So, it also represents your insatiable appetite. And it represents your what you need in order to gain for prosperity. Those things you need to adapt into your lifestyle and into your philosophy and into your habits that will furtherly propel your purpose here, right? But the South Node, on the other hand, represents those things that you need to get away from, those things that you need to move away from, those things that, you know how you say, I've been there, did that, that's behind me. This is what the South Node represents after the degree of maturity. Now, you have an application in COZMOPHYZIX where, called fate and destiny, or karma and dharma. And the North Node represents karma, and the South Node represents dharma. The North Node represents those things that you do in this life that you will carry on into the next. And the South Node represents those things that you did in the last life and that you carry on into this life. So the South Node can be looked at as talents that are already developed, that you're born with, natural inclinations that are often referred to, that are often relied upon, but that are there to be moved on from. And let's give an example, all right? King had the North Node in Taurus. He also had the South Node in Scorpio. And the exploits that he should have avoided, really, or that he should have stayed away from, were those deal with Scorpio, which is sex and manipulation. And if we look at his biography, and we look at what the FBI exposed of his person, because they tried to bring him down, right, were his sexual exploits. And those are the things that Reese referred to as those negative things. And in the charts of individuals, these are those negative qualities that you need to grow up and get away from in order to gain prosperity, in order to further your purpose here, which is the North Node. So,
and you look at Malcolm X's, he had the North Node in Leo and the South Node in Aquarius. And so what that was saying, that he had came into this lifetime or brung from his ancestral roots. He had brung from the last lifetime already the ability of inventiveness and geniusness. This is why he was seen as something as unorthodox and different. What he had to learn was how to be a leader, Leo, how to be a ruler, like unto a king, how to, like you said, command the center of attention. Then that also, North Node conjunct Neptune in his chart. So he had to use it, he had to do it through imagination and through his form of dogmatic spirituality. And you mentioned that you had mentioned something very important. He has Uranus in Pisces, and it is a sextile to Jupiter and Capricorn, a sextile to the Sun and Taurus, and those two are trying one another. So, and that's a very powerful standing that, Malcolm, when he went to Mecca, came back, he was pretty much done with how he had learned to command the crowd through the Nation of Islam. He was ready to usher in a new form of thinking when it came to spirituality, and this was totally against everything that he had learned priorly, and also led to his demise.
Indeed. So it's in this instance, again, we can refer to the natal promise. How, even though, like, as an astrologer, as an advanced astrologer, you understand what I'm about to explain. So, but I'm going to explain it for the elementary, all right? For those that are just getting into it. The fact that these things were in his natal chart. The natal chart is the book of life, in other words. It is those things that you're going to carry every day of your life. But by progress, when you progress the chart, or if you use directions, or you use progressions, you know that the universe moves. And as the planets move from one sign to another, from one degree to another, then they bring forth new experience other than what was promised to you, but they carry that promise with it. So, like, in other words, Mars and Gemini, like in Malcolm, in Martin's chart, Mars and Gemini means that he would be a motivational speaker. But through progress, Mars moved into Cancer, which is the sign of domesticity, and the sign of compassion, and the sign of empathy. So he used the birth promise, which is the motivational speaking, because that never stopped no matter what sign it moves into Cancer, to gain the empathy and the sympathies of the nation. Okay?
Yeah, families and women particularly, because you got to understand something. Martin Luther King is a very family-orientated speaker, and more women supported his movement than males.
Oh, indeed.
That's in his chart. That's in his natal promise, talking about the North Node in Taurus, because he has Venus in Pisces, and there's a sextile that forms there. So when you say women, and Venus being in a feminine sign, and the Moon and Venus in sextile to each other, which Jupiter and Taurus giving that more energy to Venus vibration, shows that in the astrological natal promise chart.
Absolutely, and when we say aspects and sextiles and stuff, what we're really saying, everybody, is that they form certain relationships to one another. When there are more than one planet in the same sign, whether they're close together or not, but with the same sign, they form a kind of family in that sign. And so we blend the energies of what they represent within the house where the area it takes place in, and the psychology of that sign to give you a holistic view of it. And then even when they're not in the same sign, they're in different signs, they form certain type of relationships, which we call angles. And so when there is a planet or more than one planet that are 90 degrees in either direction towards one another, they form a sort of a harsh aspect, kind of like a 90-degree angle. And we were all taught, like, out when I used to play in the Boy Scouts and stuff like that if you took two sticks and you rub together a 90-degree angle, you create fire. It burns. And so you have to look at it as an angle of challenge that you have to overcome in order to reap the benefits of it. If you rub two sticks together, you have to overcome the challenge. It takes a minute to overcome that challenge, that hard angle, in order for that fire to start. But the benefit is reaping the fire. So, just for the average person out there that doesn't know what angles and things of that stuff mean, we're talking about how the planets form relationships as they move throughout the sky.
Okay. I wanted to get into another aspect of Malcolm X's chart here. Okay. Right. He had Saturn opposing Venus, right? And there's a natal challenge. There's a natal promise involved in that, right? And his North Node in Leo would form the square to both of these, Venus and Saturn. And it has, because the North Node is one's purpose in life, and Venus represents the marriage in this case, you know, being specific, right? Represents the marriage, and Saturn represents the depression or heartbreak or obstacle, right? That one of his purposes, the natal promise, was that through relationships or through his marriage, his partner would receive the loss and the legacy as regards to that. His wife, Betty, right? She suffered a great deal. You know, anyone would when their husband passed, right? But there's a natal promise involved in that. Your natal promise involves other people, not just yourself, right? The signs that are involved with these planets that make the configuration that compose your natal promise represent, let me say it again, the signs that these planets are in represent the people who will be the vehicle. It represents the people that will be the vehicle. Now, you know, his teacher was Elijah Muhammad. And Elijah Muhammad was a Scorpio rising. And Malcolm X had Saturn, the teacher, in Scorpio. So his teacher, or his ultimate guru, right, or his ultimate trainer, or his father figure even, would be Elijah Muhammad. In this case,
he will be scorpionic, and you know what? It was in the 11th house too. So therefore, his teacher would also be the leader, because Saturn is also one of represents certain CEOs or people who run organizations and companies. He would be the leader of an organization or a group in which he joined, which is 11th house.
Okay, very good. That's excellent. All right. Now, what's deep is this. All right. Malcolm had the Sun and Venus in Taurus. Okay. Now I'm referring firstly and foremostly to the fact that Taurus represents land holdings and real estate. Okay, where Cancer rules
the You said May 25th, 1925. I had the Sun and Venus in Gemini.